I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. with CoinGeek. We're live at the London Blockchain Conference, and I'm joined by Scott Galloway, who just gave the keynote speech to the conference here, talking about a few depressing topics and a couple of inspiring ones. Ultimately, I'm not sure how I feel leaving, which is probably something that a good professor is quite talented at doing for their students. Scott, you spoke about sort of this epidemic of young males, actually, who struggle to connect with other humans, struggle to make relationships and connect to the world, and therefore they immerse themselves in technology. But you also brought up GLP-1 drugs and how you see a baby boom coming. And I'm wondering if those two things are at odds with each other. Do you think one will overtake the other over the course of probably a couple of decades? But what's your long-term look on those two antagonists with one another?
So you're right. One might lead to a mini boomlet, but it won't be sustainable. So the average 70-year-old in the US is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago, and the average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. The number of able-bodied people aged 30 to 34 who have kids in 1980 was 63%. Now it's 27%. So young people are opting out of having children. And I don't think it's a social movement. I think it's that they just can't afford them. So if a nation, if we don't figure out a way to provide more prosperity and quite frankly just put more money in the pockets of young people, we're just going to essentially go out of business. If you look at Japan, Italy, and China, which are facing demographic disasters, it sends economy into free fall. If you think about every major tax cut and means to get wealthy, it's essentially a transfer of wealth from young people to old people. So two biggest tax deductions, the lower tax rate on buying and selling assets, real estate and stocks, or mortgage interest rate. Who owns homes and makes their money buying and selling stocks? People my age. Who rents and who makes their money in current income? Young people. So effectively everything we've done in fiscal policy in the West over the last 40 years is an elegant transfer of wealth from young people to old people. And so young people are opting out and specifically saying, I'm not going to have kids, I can't afford it.
Yeah, well, that's sobering.
Yeah.
One of the things that stands out to me as a person who's been in the blockchain economy for over 10 years myself, I've always looked at it as a productivity tool. And I know you've criticized blockchain technology for its frank lack of productivity in real markets. There's a lot of theoretical utility, but you mentioned that store value has been the only thing that has really played out. And I'm wondering if you've noticed in the particular instance of MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor's company, that he laid off a lot of his force and repurposed a lot of that money into simply holding Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And now I think public sector companies or publicly traded companies need to explain to their boards why they're even doing R&D or trying to produce the next iPhone when instead that money could have been repurposed into Bitcoin and made better returns for the company, which strikes me as more unproductivity being incentivized in that space. But all that set up to say, if we could get a scalable blockchain, a blockchain that actually reduced the cost of payments, reduced the friction of economics, reduced friction of business in general, do you think that a technology like that, first of all, could even get over the narrative of do nothing, get rich? Or is that a technology, how futile is that technology for young people to pursue from a productivity standpoint?
So two different things there. What you're talking about with Michael and MicroStrategy. So I've known Michael for 15, 20 years, and he's a visionary. He saw value where I didn't see it. But him taking the majority of his assets and his firm's assets and putting them into an asset class is just a big, bold, speculative bet. It really isn't about productivity.
Yeah.
If he had convinced his company to put all of their money in Robinhood, it would have done really poorly. If he'd convinced them to put all their money in NVIDIA, it would have done really well. So it was just a speculative bet that paid off hugely, and Michael has incredible brain power around this stuff.
Yeah.
The question I have around blockchain, I've heard about interesting applications in terms of efficiency, the cost to transmit information, the ability for decentralized. Until recently, I was on the board of Ledger, cold storage. I do believe that You're going to have a lot of people store their assets in a decentralized currency that's out of the reach of governments or taxation authorities, or quite frankly, just authorities. The question I would have around, just being quite blunt, is how many times a day does the blockchain impact people's lives? I touch AI every day.
Yep.
Whenever I'm writing something, whenever I read something, AI is touching me. Or, I get touched by Google every day, Meta, Instagram. I would argue that the majority of people, at least explicitly, don't see how the blockchain is impacting their life. And the use cases have not kept up with the hype. Now, that's not to say generally there's a hype cycle and then it comes back out.
Yep.
I think we're in a question mark stage around whether the blockchain itself, it used to be, the narrative was, oh, it's not about crypto, it's about the blockchain. And now that crypto has absolutely had an unbelievable renaissance, people are now saying, oh, it's about store of value on crypto, not the blockchain. So I think it's just up to smart people to figure out new applications and sit on top of it. So in my opinion, we know headsets don't work. Stupid, right? I think words out, they don't work. Voice is a question mark. It was hyped, then it went down.
Yep.
But with GPT-4o, voice might come back. I would argue that's where the blockchain is. Overhyped, the applications and the use cases have not kept up with the hype. It's come way down. The question is it voice that comes back? Is it the web in 2000 where it comes back dramatically? Or is it 3D printing that we look back and say, what were we thinking?
Sure.
And the honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah. So as a final point, I think one of the major points that you made at the beginning of your presentation was that we have so much junk data. We're inundated with data. And the concept of proof of work in Bitcoin was designed first actually to filter out email spam, which was another thing that you mentioned. Now, 20 years on, it still isn't really being used for that. But fundamentally, if somebody were to use the blockchain to make sure that only good data is added to machine learning models, and then actually filtering out noise, actually whittling down and getting to signal, what do you think the opportunity is there? And can we encourage young entrepreneurs to look for actual application in finding that nugget of real economic value in the real world using blockchain, but integrating it into AI and then more broadly, our general problem with bad data?
I think that's a great vision. I guess the question I would ask is anyone doing that? And then the next question is, you use the term, I forget, better data, or the question is who's the arbiter of what's better data?
Sure.
And truth has become this malleable thing, and people get very sensitive when you start editing out. I mean, to a certain extent, the whole ethos of blockchain is it's decentralized, and there isn't a middleman deciding what you should read, not read, what should have visibility from taxation or legal authorities. Yep. So I've always thought the ultimate use case for Bitcoin was if you live in a country that has terrible management and inflation is a constant threat that can literally rip through all of your time and work and inflate your assets away. And then also has currency controls, which is a government telling you what to do with your own private property, the ability to move something into a store of value and put it cross-currency out of the reach of what you feel is an incompetent management or authorities that can basically wipe out all of your work and time.
Yep.
To me, that is a very viable use case. It's tens of billions of dollars flowing through that use case. The vision you just outlined is compelling, but I have trouble thinking of a company or a technology that's doing that.
Sure, no, that's fair. It is definitely a broad vision. Scott, thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks very much.
I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr., and this is CoinGeek. We'll be back here at the London Blockchain Conference soon. Bye-bye.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Blockchain 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain. BSV is more than another chaotic commodity craze. BSV blockchain can do more than just be a crypto investment. It can help you get more out of your games, share more of your art, BSV makes more things possible.